Welcome to our new episode of Basadi by Molao. But let me first wish you all the best for 2020 and compliments of the season. Today we'll be talking about sexual harassment and gender-based violence. Now, because this is a very heavy topic, we've decided to break this into 3 parts. We'll release each part during the month of February, and we will also release a guideline and a step-by-step process that you can follow at the end of February. Now let me introduce our panel members. We have 2 lovely ladies who will be joining us today and speaking about this sexual harassment and gender-based violence. We have Gideon Olwagen-Meyer. She's an advocate and she's very passionate about family law and women's rights. Welcome, Gigi. Tell us about why you're so passionate about women's rights.
Thank you, Anthea. Well, over the past 50 years, there has been remarkable progress in South Africa in respect of women's rights. However, women still have to face sexual harassment, gender-based violence, and the constant battle for equality within the workplace on a day-to-day basis. Now, as a family law practitioner, I find myself in the privileged position on a regular basis where I am able to represent the victims of domestic violence or harassment in our civil courts. Now, it takes tremendous courage from a victim to come forward and face their perpetrator in the court environment. But during those matters, there usually comes a time where the victim realizes my story and my voice is being heard and that I did nothing wrong and this was not my fault. And it's usually at that moment where the journey of healing and recovery from the incident starts. And that is why I'm so passionate about this specific area of law.
Thanks so much, Gigi. We have an old friend, Simangele Mphahlele, who is the founder of Tala People Development. She has been with us on a previous episode. Welcome, and thank you for joining us today. Briefly tell us what you do at Tala People Development, Simangele.
Thank you for having me back. So I work with organizations and individuals. On an individual level, I do a lot of one-on-one work around personal development, self-development, and career coaching. And then on the organizational side, I do work around people development strategies that help organizations to be able to perform and meet their targets and be productive.
Okay, thanks so much. Now in this section, we'll be dealing with what is sexual harassment and gender-based violence, as well as debunking some of the myths surrounding it. Now let me turn to you first, Simangele. There's general confusion about what sexual harassment is. Most people think sexual harassment must be sexual, but that's not the case. What is sexual harassment?
Sexual harassment can also be unwanted or advances that are verbal. Mm-hmm. Somebody can make comments about your dress, your hair, your body, your appearance, the way that you look. They can even make jokes. Mm-hmm. It's not only physical where somebody touches you inappropriately, but it can also be verbal or in a way that a person looks at you as well.
Gigi?
It's also something that can take on a far more severe form in the sense that a quid pro quo situation can develop between a senior and a junior or a manager and a junior, in terms of which sexual favors are expected in exchange for opportunities or exposure or a promotion or a salary increase.
So what I'm hearing, sexual harassment is the unwanted and unwarranted attention that makes any individual feel uncomfortable. Is that correct?
Indeed.
Gigi, let's turn to gender-based violence. Now this has been happening for forever, but it's only recently that people are starting to speak about it. What is gender-based violence and how can we deal with it?
Well, yeah, it is a term that's used to describe violence or harm that is inflicted upon an individual or a group based upon certain normative understandings of their gender. Now in South Africa, this is a profound and a far-reaching problem that disproportionately so affects women and children in our country on a day-to-day basis. Now firstly, and as we've seen in the media lately, this is something that we have to address on a social level within our community. And secondly, it's something that also has to be dealt with and addressed by both our civil as well as our criminal courts.
Indeed, sir. Now, let's go to debunking the myths. We will deal with more of these aspects on the law and process in our next segment. The first myth, there is a profile for the typical harasser. Gigi, what is your thoughts?
Definitely not. It could be anybody of any age, race, gender, sexual orientation. It's often the person that you would least expect that kind of behavior from.
Simangele?
It also can be at all levels of organizations. It can also be at all occupations. And research has shown that there's also sexual harassment at peer-to-peer level as well. It's not always a power play or where there's a relationship of power with the victim.
And I think that's what makes it more difficult for people to come forward, because it's somebody that they least expect, so that they think others won't believe them. They'll say it could never be him, or it could never be her. We wouldn't expect it from them. And I think that causes the problem in women coming forward. The next myth is survivors are in some way to be blamed for being harassed. You'll hear questions like, what were you wearing? Were you drinking? How were you behaving? Simangele, what are your thoughts regarding that?
I think anybody should be held accountable for their own actions, and they must take responsibility for their own actions. If something is not wanted, it's not wanted, period. And we should take more stronger efforts to prosecute people that just perpetuate behavior that's just not wanted. Be it regardless of what that person was wearing, how they behaved, and what their appearance is like. No one deserves to be treated in a way that they're not comfortable with.
Exactly. And then the last one, Gigi, only women are harassed. What do you say about that?
Definitely not. Men are harassed as well. And lately, we're seeing more and more members of our LGBTQ community coming forward and reporting incidents of harassment.
Yeah, and I think it's mainly because they are seen to not be conforming to the norm. They're more open about their sexual orientation at work and in social settings, and I think that tends to put them in the spotlight for harassment as well. So thank you once again for sharing your views with us. And this concludes part 1 of our sexual harassment and gender-based violence segment. The next segment will be dealing with the law and the process. Thank you.